Welcome to the podcast of Data and Analytics in Business. We'll learn from the leading industry experts using data and analytics to solve the problems and create values in practice. We'll also learn where the industry is heading to and how data and analytics will shape the industry in the future. Most importantly, how they are preparing their business for digital transformation and disruption in the future. I'm your host, Jason Tan, and thank you for listening.
When we think of Europe, we often think of its wine, cheese, beautiful architecture, and advanced manufacturing such as aeroplanes and automobile. We don't often associate Europe with information technology, software, data science, or artificial intelligence. However, do you know that a product called TerraVision, which is a 3D mapping software that works very much like Google Earth, was created by the German company back in 1993. Yes, it was 1993, and it's truly revolutionary based on what the technology was capable of. In this episode, I spoke with Aleksandar Linc-Djordjevic to find out more about the progress with data science and artificial intelligence in Europe. He is the managing director at the Data Science Conference. It is one of the world's biggest franchise dedicated to data science and artificial intelligence. I first asked Alex about his involvement in Serbia National Youth Strategy, and I got him to share with us some transferable skills in managing his company this day. We then dive into the discussion on the scene of data science and AI in Europe. As the managing director at DSC, who runs conferences in Europe and US, he is certainly a great candidate for all these questions. I asked Alex to share with me the comparison of data science as an industry between Europe and the other parts of the world, such as USA, Asia, Australia, and China. As he answered the question, he also shared how and what can be done in that space for the world to learn more about the data science development in Europe. This includes building community and collaboration across the world. If you are a policymaker working in the government agency from other parts of the world that is not the USA, and you're wanting to understand how Europeans are facing a similar challenge in having their technology advancement in the area of AI and data science being recognized. Or perhaps you want to understand what you may be able to do to incorporate this important technology into the national plan for your country, then this is really the episode that you do not want to miss out. If you have any question for Alex or myself, make sure you send us an email or message on LinkedIn. This is my final episode for the year 2021, and I want to thank every guest and listener and also my staff for the support. I truly appreciate the knowledge and feedback many of you share with me, and to thank you all for this, I'm giving away 1,000 Dogecoin. It is a small token of my appreciation for your support, and I shall see you soon in 2022. Last but not least, make sure you click the subscribe button before the interview starts so you will be the first to be informed on the latest episode on how business leaders run a high-performance organization using data science. One last note, I make a mistake in suggesting French invented the first laptop, but upon validating the fact it was the Japanese. My apology for the mistake, and thank you for your understanding. I'm your host, Jason Tan, and thank you for listening. Welcome to the Analytics Show podcast. Thank you so much, dialing all the way in from Serbia. I'm excited to chat with you today about the data science in Europe and how is that looking when we are considering and comparing to US and Asia.
Very nice to have me there. I'm very glad that we established connections basically a few months ago, and you were a speaker as well at our conference. So you could saw and feel the DST vibe. And like I said, it's very important, I think, to connect between all parts of the world, and being said that as well as between Europe and Australia.
I agree. And connecting different part of the world and working towards that understanding each other, I think is so important. Again, thank you so much for having me to speak at your conferences about last month. I really appreciate it. To kick things started, I wanted to chat with you about that, your participation in the development process for Serbia National Youth Strategy through 2015 to 2025. I think that is a great involvement. How did you get involved with that, and how did the whole thing get started?
Well, basically, just in like few sentences, I was had a totally different career direction before I joined the data science and AI world. Basically, I'm data science professional as well, being like community leader. But like I said before that, I was a youth leader, and I was one of the biggest youth organization in Serbia, umbrella organization called National Youth Council of Serbia. As a part of the board, as a board member, I was delegated to write down. I was 23 years old, so basically, I think I'm the youngest ever in the world, like who was the lead for one national strategy, and I was for the part employment and entrepreneurship. Fun fact is that a lot of countries, including Malaysia, in Southeastern Asia, is basically just take what we have done in Serbia and deploy their national youth strategies. That's very fun fact. They just told me like I don't know a few years ago that they are using that, and I was like totally, it's a totally different situation and connection with like with that APEC region that part of my strategy is basically implemented all across the world. It was very cool strategy. It had like in that moment very advanced things such as vocational education, which is very important for people who are not going to the high level education, and that's something that we fought very hard in the UN to make it as a part of the educational system, because it's very important for the people who are not high educated too, and even for the higher education to have a practical learning, something that is very important.
Oh, good stuff. I would love to hear more about that. So how have you found that experience in that project and in doing those sort of youth strategy during the time that you were doing the works with them?
Well, basically, what I have learned there, and before that, I finished the school for the professional trainer, certificate civic trainer from the NDI in US, and the kids from Germany. They are two strong. I think with ERA, they are the three strongest school for the training. And I had like trainings for the strategy development as well. I went in my high school gymnasium, which was very strategically oriented and gifted school. So basically, when you learn about thinking strategically, think not only what is happening today or tomorrow, but to think about three hints away in front, like not only from the strategic point of view, but not only also from the operational point of view, implementation point of view, strategical, tactical point of view. That's something that later on it can be very easily translate to data science role. Why? Because if you want to get useful information from data, we need to put them in one moment in tidy part, and that's strategic thinking about how you can build a system, basically how you can utilize the system and what you would like to get from the system as a return rate. So you can do benchmarking and to understand if you're doing good or bad, because sometimes, like we talked before we started recording this, it's very hard to do benchmarking sometimes, and people do tend to say, okay, it's very easy. It's not very easy because it has so many different aspects, and the easiest way is for you to set up some benchmarking and to see if you're doing good or bad in some terms.
Now, speaking of the data science, that is how I came to know you, as you run the Data Science Conference Europe. Share with us a bit more about Data Science Conference. Is that in Europe only, or is that around the world? I think it is. Please tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, basically our roots are in Europe for sure, but we are also started last year the first conference in US. It was Cleveland, Ohio. This year, the next year, basically, 2022 is going to be in Miami, Florida, one, and we are thinking about having one additional in Washington on some different topic of cybersecurity. In data science and cybersecurity, but basically it's a movement that has started in Belgrade, Serbia. It's one small country in Balkan region, Southeastern Europe, and we started as a small local conference, like 250 people back in 2015 with 2 tracks, and what we saw very quickly that there was like we had more than 900 people applied for the conference we organized the second year, and we said, okay, we need to change something. Like we cannot like having like like totally open conference of 900 people. We cannot bring the speakers, etc. So we said, let's change a bit more concept. And we are having like 3 years development plan for the conference. And we started going up. We had such as Terry Singh, Hadley Wickham, Peter Morgan, who are worldwide like leaders, experts, and authorities in the field of data science and AI, and basically tools development as well. We're talking like global data science authority, Hadley Wickham for sure. But like I said, we grew up like in 2019, which was before 2021. Last live conference, we had over 1,200 people attending the conference. 40% of them were outside of Serbia. 25% of them were outside of our region, basically like Southeastern Europe or Western Balkan, whatever you like to call it. But like I said, basically it's the same, different naming for it. It's political, but it's different naming. But in the end, what we said, okay, and we start talking with our advisory board. And fun fact that we had people from Goldman Sachs in our advisory board as well. So basically, we are the first institution that officially Goldman Sachs has given the view, their opinion, their official statement in the whole Balkan region. Like they're not even given for the states, they're given for us. But that's talking about that people have believed in us from the first place, and that we have established really good connections. And it's not hard when you ask people to help you with something that is very reasonable. In the end, it happens that they are helping you. And that's how we started to think about it, told us, okay, this is something that is transcending the Serbian and even maybe European. Let's try to go with other countries. And we started with Croatia, which is a country west from Serbia, basically our closest neighbor and closest friend. And after that, we started with Austria as well. In 2020, we named the Central Serbian Conference, the Data Science Conference Europe, as a Central European Conference. And in the last year, we started to have US. For the next year, like we talked, we are also planning to have Australia, to have Scandinavia, and we are thinking about Brazil or Tokyo, to include Brazil or Tokyo or Japan. Like as also we have some connections. So basically, our goal to have to be the first major conference happening on all 6 continents, basically. Not 7. It's a bit hard to have somebody, but make somebody from Antarctica to join us in the program. So we have all the 7 continents to join together.
I can certainly attest to the quality of the conference as I was speaking in the event, and also going through the list of all the speakers as I like to do my homework. I think there were a lot of high profile and from the big institution speakers speaking at the conference, not only just from the private sector, but also from the public sector and also the academic. So I think it will be great to see this sort of thing get replicated in Australia or in Asia. So I look forward to that. Now, speaking about this, tell us a bit more about your role as the managing director at the Data Science Conference.
Should I be very truthful or should I be...
Either way.
What I should be telling.
Let me see if I can tell.
Yeah, well, basically, okay, I can tell you from a different point of view. Basically, when you're managing director of the conference, let's be completely honest, and that's something I think that people will not going to tell a bit more. I'm going to talk about also what the things we didn't do good as well, because I truly do believe that you need to learn from your mistakes. Sometimes we have a tendency to, let's say, I don't know, when you're managing director, you need to be prepared that if there's even the most stupidest thing ever that is not done by your teammates, you're the one who needs to check that. If they didn't do that, if you didn't remind them, you need to do that. If it's even I don't know, if you saw that there was newsletter not sent, you're managing director, but somebody needs to send in the end. You're responsible for this. And you need to have this mindset that it's not only about delegating, it's about if something is done, how it's done, good or bad. It's about all the time talking about different stakeholders, explaining to them why something much better. For example, from a business point of view. And in the recent years, we had a lot of success there. That the business-to-business events are not something that is working out for the businesses, because you see, the academia is very important. Professionals are very important, as well as businesses, big businesses and big tech are very important to be at. All of them are important to have their room under the sun in the conference. So basically, your role as a managing director is mostly to talk with people, talk, and after that you all the time talk. And sometimes when your girlfriend will come and say, okay, just stop talking about the conference, you're not on the meetings anymore, and you cannot stop because you can talk all day. And when she says you start having like meeting with her and she's saying you're crazy again, don't do that. Don't be like a workaholic again.
I can totally relate to that. On the side note, how do you keep your energy up for talking meeting after meeting and for the whole day? I think that is something that's one thing that we all need. And I know sometimes I do find it challenging to be able to keep my energy up. So I try to limit the numbers of the meeting that I would have every single day so that I can also still have energy left for work, for family, and something for myself.
Yeah, basically, I believe I'm neurotic. Joking, of course. I don't know. To be honest, like I'm hyperactive person. I'm very, very hyperactive person, and I only sleep like 4 or 5 hours per day. If I sleep more than that, I'm very unhappy with myself because I cannot sleep more than that. Because even when I'm sleeping, sometimes I'm having lucid dreams. So basically, I'm even working in something imagery. I have tendency to basically that's actually cool thing to write songs. I'm not I don't have musical education, but I can write songs in my dreams. Basically, and I have some songs even written and recorded. That's like fun fact, a little bit known fact about me that I've written, but not only like lyrics, but as well as music. I'm writing music in my dreams, and basically after I wake up, I just like record and send to my friend who is a musician, and we record after that. But basically, and we need to record new songs that I will send. You'll not understand a word, but it's a good song. And our next goal is to apply for Eurovision, like with that song.
That would be
Well, basically, like you can see, I'm a very positive person. I'm not afraid to try and fail. I'm not afraid like to, I don't know, to make a joke about myself and about the others. I think that the humor is something that will save the world. Like not data all the time that we can talk about a bit later, but also the humor is very important. Like to be a positive person, to think about it, to think about win-wins, not something that will only benefit you as a person, but whole community. We talked about before that I think that it's very important to understand. Everyone should understand that it's not only about few people who will do community work, whatever part, data science, I don't know, healthcare, basic human rights, or something like that. It's not only about few of us doing the job for the whole nation and whole ecosystem, whole community in the end. It's about understanding that sometimes 5 or 10 or 15 minutes per day, like, and we are talking about on the weekly level or monthly level, invested in our strength and our bringing together all of us, like whole world as one, can create so much positive energy that you can feed on. For example, I'm very glad that I had a chance to talk with you before we started recording for more than 40 minutes. And we said, okay, there's a good things already said that. Let's try to record something in the end. But like I said, after that, I'm going to be positively impacted for the full day because I had a chance to talk with you with somebody who maybe I wouldn't have a possibility to talk like just 30 years ago because of technology. So in the end, I think that using the perks of the technology and putting them in your curious mind is something that keeps me positive all day. And I will, to be completely honest, I have sometimes at the time totally deployed of the energy, and sometimes on the end of the day they just fall asleep. There is a situation like that for sure. I'm not going to lie. The time like superhuman, I'm not. Nobody's superhuman. Maybe Elon Musk, but I'm not sure he's human. But like I said, in the end, it's something that it's natural thing, and I think that everybody from our side needs to first understand to be satisfied with who you are, to accept yourself, and in the end to grow yourself from that basis, because that's the basis who you are is something that you deeply know that if you would like to be something a bit different like than you are right in the moment, is totally fine. But if it's coming inside from your side, not outside from the peer pressure or something like that, to be something that you are not, that's the worst thing that can happen. I can see a lot of people tending to be part of some narratives or something like that, and they're not happy with that. And in the end, if you're not feeling a little bit of joy every day, what are you doing with your life? Like what's happening? You need to be like joyful. You need to try to be joyful, even if you're like, I don't know, the murky man, like all the time, like being negative, but you're happy because you're negative. Like that's also fine. I'm not having a problem with this kind of person who are all the time pessimistic. But like I said, if you're truly pessimistic guy, that's or girl, that's totally fine. Be who you are all the time. Of course, unless you're hurting somebody too much. I don't know. If saying some bad words sometimes, like I don't know, if you're having black humor, I don't have a problem with that. Somebody has. I'm not having. I like to joke on my side, on the black humor side, but like I said, that's maybe the case in my side.
I like you highlight about the community. And on that note, my question for you is, what do you hope to achieve for the data science community?
Well, basically, our motto is And I can also share like that with your audience as a fun fact that I think nobody knows except 3 person involved. It's changed the world through data. Like we would like to change the world through data. Basically, how it started, we had a meeting with Microsoft and Nordeus, 2 big companies, to present to them what we'd like to do, how we'd like to change data science conferences as a conference. And we said, okay, we need to have some motto. And I was over the phone dictating to my close friend Maria, who was back then marketing manager of the conference. And she totally understood me wrongly. And I cannot remember what was the first thing, but she was writing down, okay, changing the world through data. And we said, okay, this is much better what I have said previously. Let's stick with that. Like basically, when I was young, that's something that also was deeply rooted in my I don't know childhood. When I was younger, what I all the time said that I would like to change the world, basically. And I think that everybody of us has a strength to change the world, and sometimes somehow it stick to me like from the early days. And basically, I think that you also experience like that when you're younger, that people don't believe in that. Like, okay, don't be foolish. You're young. You will. It's not possible to change anything. Just stick with the rules. Just stick with the system. And I'm totally anti-establishment guy for everything else. I'm like totally Pirate Bay guy. I totally adore that. I like, I don't know, blockchain, cryptocurrency, what is doing. Like, I like disruptive technology because I truly do believe, like, I studied astrophysics, and I truly do believe that entropy that is going up to 1 is something that is normal system. But of course, it need to go ups and down. Like, we need to have like some framework we are working on, but that's normal state, like to not have everything already predefined.
Now, the most recent data science conference took place in Europe back in November. I'm curious to know that given that you work extensively running all these data science conferences in Europe, and then you're starting out in US, different part of Europe as well, how do you feel the data science community in Europe compares to that of the United States, or maybe Asia, or maybe Australia, or maybe China?
Well, for sure, in first, let's say, for example, for China, it's not called communistic party like data science community. So basically, that's maybe the major. Okay, joking, of course. I think that I'm not sure that what is happening right now, basically on a tech level between US, China, and everything is good for the world, like this kind of a battle. I think that when the elephants play, the grass is getting hurt, like basically, and that's meaning small startups, the small minds that are making a small. It's not in terms of their knowledge, but in terms of their like how big and vocal they can be. They are somebody who is very hurt. For example, GDPR, which is a good law in the end, but it's very hard to employ. For example, it's made from European Union to just penalize the big tech from US. And the most of the business that are impacted by the GDPR are the medium companies in Europe, basically. In the end. So, like I said, how can I say what is the difference? I think there is much more similarities than difference, to be honest. But let's say I think that, for example, in terms of United States, I think that we are a bit more tech than business oriented. I still believe that US is creating very, very latest tune of the technology, but whatever they are doing, they are firstly oriented toward business. And in Europe, it's not that. I think that they are more people from academia coming and it's different kind of academia. Even in the academia in US is very, very strongly business oriented as well. And basically what we learned last year that we need to have 2 different channels for communications, one for the US, one for the Europe and rest of the world, because it's that much difference. It's not about data science community, but how they perceive the information. I think that it's totally different. What attract them, how they do KPIs. I think they are much, much faster growing and changing, which can be a good and a bad thing. Good thing because I think that innovation is very, very it's on a high level, but also benchmarking and thinking about if something is really working or not. Okay, if something is like having 3% of growth per quarter, it's good for somebody but basically it's that real why you have started the startup. Yes, I think that the startups tends to be not bigger, but more truthful to themselves in Europe than in the US, for example. I think in the US, in one moment, I don't know, due to the, hedge funds, VC funds, etc., they tend to forget why they have started business and they just do business as usual. And in Europe, like I said, I think that it's a different approach. End result is not going to be the same in terms of business and profit. The US is going to be all the time in front of the Europe because of this kind of approach, to be honest, completely. But I think that some changes can be done much easier some new technology and some new innovation because of this thing more truthful to your original thought can be more easily done in Europe. Like I said, regarding the Asia, I think that there is a lot of noise coming from Asia as well. In terms of watching us, we're also doing something. I think that world is not looking enough, especially like from the point of view of Europe and US, they're not looking that enough in Australia and the APAC region. And I think there is a lot of cool startups, and I would like to share that in some later part to maybe just connect. People can understand that what we are doing, like basically in Europe, what is done basically in US, it can be done in the Australia. What comes to my mind like right now, because I also did my homework. For example, there is Catherine Bell from robotics, which is a very important person, I think, on worldwide level. And there's not that many people that much familiar with her work. And we have a lot of robotics also here in Europe. But basically, there's a lot of things going on, like basic separately on different part of the world. And that's very beautiful. That's, like I said, we have a lot of similarities. Because if we connect together, maybe we already have some solution of the problems we have in the different parts of the world. And connectively, we can join new value there. I think there is a lot of value in communication because, like I said, it's very, very hard just to, browse through the algorithms and search for the algorithms there is too many of things. There's hyper production of scientific paperwork. I think that we are now more than ever, which is maybe paradoxal, we should be rely on human touch and human experience and human networking than only browsing through the internet. It's cool, but I think there is hyper production of everything that can be problematic for the people to get to the right information in the right moment. And sometimes even the moment it's very important, like to get. It's not the same if you get information now or 6 months from now, or maybe you need to have 6 months from now that information because now you cannot use it. So basically, like I said, that's something that is important.
I certainly agree a lot of what you say about the US being a lot more business oriented. And sometimes I think that there are two things that give the unfair advantages to United States over any other country or Europe or Asia. And these two things are, number one is their medium language is English, which happen to be the language that is used by the entire world. And they have got a really strong media. And what I mean by that is that whenever things that goes on the news of the United States, the rest of the world actually happen to watch it. And as a result of that, then whatever information or the idea that the Americans are championing gets spread across and get picked up by the rest of the globe. That, however, is not necessarily the case for the European or maybe even the Japanese. As much as Japanese is really good with some of the technology, is not the advantage that I feel like even Australian would have due to the lack of the media present. Do you think you agree with that? I'm curious.
Well, to be honest, yes, I think that, but even media in America is like very strongly opinionated about everything, like, and they are like very vocal and they are very fierce and they're very combating, not because they believe in that, like most of the time. And I truly do believe that they are not believing in what they are saying, because I'm from a media family as well. Grandfather was the longest running general secretary of a journalist, association of journalists in Serbia. And basically, most of them don't believe in what they are, but they are basically, they tend to see that they, I don't know. I'm not fond of this, like this aggressive approach, and shoot them all like approach, like who is not with me, he's against me. I don't believe in this kind of approach, and I have tendency to see that there is and not from the startup scene, to be honest. Like I think that the startup scene in America, like people who are in startup scene in America, are much closer in mindset to the Europeans and Australians, I suppose. I don't know that many Australians, to be honest. I know you, Alex, and 5 others. But like I said, whoever I meet, I think that you're very, like, let's say, peacefully approach, like people, like very calm, and that's something like I think that they are much more in context of that. They are like mostly related. But when we are talking about bigger corporations, which like I think that they are much more brutal, to be honest. Like And also, like, we are talking about media much more brutal, and they are ready to do everything they think that is in their interest, which I don't believe that is sustainable. That's why we are seeing the situation what we are seeing right now in America, the division in America. I think that right now, I'm not sure how much, and basically I would like to spend one part of my life like living in America and experience American as well as an American, but I don't believe that right now is a good place to be like 100%. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong, to be honest. We are starting conference. Maybe this is wrong to say from my side, but I think that the division in the US is growing bigger between the people. And when that's the situation between the people, we need to come back. Okay, what is the role of media? What is the role of the social media? Why social media is not regulated as a media? It's in the end, okay, it's social, but it's also media. Why don't we regulate more? Is there monopoly players? Like, if they're monopoly players, why don't we break down them into different separate groups? Why don't we talk about, is there should be some regulation how they use data? Should they put data what we are putting on Facebook for everyone to use? Is that also, like, that's not going to impact their business model? That's going to even foster more their business model, because people will like to learn. But data information is power. So basically, there is a lot of things I think we should be much more vocal and talk about as a professionals, like from not only for that point of view, but I think that people sometimes do tend to be maybe afraid, let's say. Even that's a good thing to auto censor them. And I'm from the country where there is done a lot like auto censorship of the people, that they are not going to speak vocally because they are afraid what can be happening in the end. I'm not the kind of person. I don't care. Like, I'm thinking what I'm thinking, and I'm talking how I'm talking, and that's my motto for the whole life. And it will be like until I'm breathing my breath, like having my breath. Basically, I'm going to talk what I think. But I think that we need to talk a bit more about not only that, what has been doing in the Amazon. I don't know, Apple factories in the Asia, like child labor, things like that. That is important thing. We cannot just say, okay, that's not happening, because it's happening, guys. It's part of our world, and we cannot just say because it's like 1,000 or 10,000 kilometers away from us, it's not happening. It's happening, basically. Maybe it needs to be differently like approach. Like, it needs to be okay. If it's called, also you need to have like understanding for different cultures, but we need to raise these talks and to be very vocal, especially if we are cooperating with this kind of corporation, to ask them more, okay, why you're doing like that. And it's not very popular for the business to do something like that. But when you bridge that gap and they understand that need to cooperate, they're not having problems with that. Like, and I think that we need to be, like I said, we need to be more aware of the world happening around us, and how our deeds have the consequences of the whole community. Like I said, community is the key, like I said previously.
Sometimes I feel that Europe is often not associated or recognized with their technological advances, despite doing well in that area. An example of that would be, it was the French who invented the laptop, but it is the American.
I didn't know that, to be honest, but that's cool. Fun fact. I'm going to talk with my friend.
My question is then, how can Europe get more attention on its data science and technology scene and development?
To be completely honest, I'm not sure it can be done, because, like I said, we are not having that much of the strong media. Okay, how to do that? Basically, what's the problem with European people, with European companies? The biggest problem is that they would like to conquer the world, like in terms of but they would like to be spread out all the world, but they are not ready. Even the big companies are not ready to deal business with US. And one big market player, there is a lot of companies, big companies. I'm not talking about small startups, etc., doing some outsourcing for the US companies. But I think that companies from Europe need to be much more bold, and they not need to be much more like in San Francisco. If your startup fail, there's like 10 of different startup players who is going to help you back on your feet, like with the money, with everything. Like, Europe needs to be more connected. Europe needs to forget about the borders. I don't know how much this kind of European Union is a good institution, it's a good idea, but I think that it can be much more. And it's not because of bureaucracy and everything else, like, because they are basically just saving their jobs. But they're doing basically, it's even worse thing. They are doing a lot, but they are not doing enough. If you can understand me, so you cannot say, okay, they are not doing that. That's totally ludicrous situation. They are doing something, and they are doing a lot, but not enough in the right direction sometimes. I don't know. And I think that's not realistic because of the history. Still, it's not realistic to be much closer to the United States, to be like United States of Europe. It will be something that's needed for it's like totally changing mindset. That's why I'm not sure that it can be happening. But to be honest, like when we're talking about technology, technological advances, for sure, I think that Australia and Europe is not that far behind US or even maybe behind US. That's totally like BS. Like it's not like, but the marketing business thing, what we say that the people who are doing tech in Europe, they are not all the time, or there is not critical mass of the people who are doing this part of marketing, PR, business in the Europe and connected with tech startups and tech advances. They are not connected like in the US with their companies and startups. I think that's the biggest issue with Europe.
It's interesting that I think one thing that came into my mind, I was going to ask you this question. What are some of the examples that data science achievement from Europe that haven't gathered as much media attention as it deserves? And as I was going to ask you that question, one thing came to my mind is this company called, so not company, but a product called TerraVision. TerraVision is technically Google Earth, and it was created by a startup called Art.com in Germany, and they actually built Google Earth before year 2000. I think it was like year 1995, and sadly it didn't take off as good as Google Earth, but I feel like it was a great example how the advance of the technology, the advance of the data science in Europe, that it just doesn't get much of the media attention that it deserves. Well, I give you that example. Do you have any example that come to mind that you know of?
For example, let's start, maybe we can even, not only data science, but use of data science. Like we said before, data science and AI cannot be only per se data science and AI. It need to be employed in some industry. Like it's multidisciplinary. For example, I don't know, we're all of us, for example, are talking about Pfizer vaccine, but basically it's not created by Pfizer. It's created by BioNTech from Germany. Like it's used.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
For example, like it's mRNA-based vaccine that use a lot of data science and AI behind the wheel, so we can do testing and much to faster the process of approving, etc. It has used this approach. I know that my friends from Rijeka are also using like peptides, and they are on big EU project, which one of the thing is to find a cure for cancer. Well, it's also mRNA based like a thing, and it's using peptides, and it's very interesting technology when you come across, like not going into active vaccine things, etc. I think that everybody has a right to do approach what they would like to do, but I'm talking about technology because I'm not who's going to watch this. I don't want to have a bad reputation, but the thing is, like I said, the technology for itself, it's very, very, very interesting. Like, and what they are trying to, and how they are trying to do, and what are the peptides. When you go into the B2D and read about it, it's very interesting. Also, everybody's talking about Tesla. Like I don't know in the US, but we're having in Balkan, we're having somebody self-driving cars from Rimac, which are much better than Tesla right now and much cheaper than Tesla. They are based in Croatia, like basically Croatia, like a small country that has like, I don't know, 3 million people. And he's also genius, but people don't. And he bought Bugatti, which is like sporting car company, and it's now Rimac Bugatti technology. And there is a lot, like I said, there is not enough people. Even in Croatia, people are not having that much media exposure to this guy. And he's a genius. He needs to be exposed. Like, I think that we're back to the like community help and community staying together and saying to everybody, look at what Rimac is doing. Like, okay, maybe like 2 people from my company go to Rimac because I'm approaching about Rimac, but they should maybe be there because they will be much more useful there. And somebody from Rimac who is not useful there, like, and he's excellent, he will come to my company. I think like the survival of the fittest, that we are like basically competing with the US and they can offer much bigger salaries. But also there is a lot of people who are thinking about, okay, it's very cool to work with America, but it's much better to work with some company from my country and to help like community and development. Because to be honest, like, of course, there is a difference if you have like 50,000 euros or you have 5,000 euros, but still like in Europe. But in our part of Europe, if you have like more than 1,500 euros, you're already living very easily, like very easy life. It's different like approach. So basically like having like 5 or 10 for this person, especially for introvert person, it's not that important. Like, and they are making the progress, not only extrovert but also introvert. Also, for example, we're having from Austria Quantum ML, the company Reply.com, who already deployed Quantum ML and AI solution in banking. We have UiPath from Romania that is leading a robot automatization. Basically, robot automatization. What does it mean? It doesn't mean that they are building robots, but they are building software robots. They are manually work, so they are using heavily AI, and they are huge company. UiPath, even from Serbia, like I don't know, like 5 companies that heard, and that we are basically neighbors with Romania, and that's like very ludicrous situation. Geolytics from UK, which is the leading authority of using open data, inputting in that monetization of open data. Basically, they are doing with Japan with their Starbucks in Japan, that when they are seeing that people are on the highway and they start like doing like something that they are sleepy, they get attention to their coffee. You can take a coffee like on the next stop. So they're using the public camera to deploy to the people. Like, it's very interesting technology. They were also having like in Croatia, and not only Croatia, but the whole Europe, robotics is very strong, rooted in Euros. For example, like AWS has their own robots. Gideon Brothers, they have also their robots. We have gaming companies from Serbia, for example. They're using heavily AI and ML for their pet for players. For example, Nordeus in Serbia, they are like having like top 11 game, which is like the most downloaded game ever in the Facebook, for example. And they having like, I don't know how many, they have billions users. And in the end, like I said, also in the end, it's the vaccine build and tech. So I think that we basically, I know about one additional company, and they're competing with Facebook and Deezer right now in creating like voice separation, like with instruments, which is very interesting topic. We can talk, I think, one whole dedicated show to the computational art part. We are also connected because like I said, in our conference, we are connecting quantum technology, computational art, data science, pure data science, data analytics, visualization, AI and ML. And I think that the holistic approach is the best one, architecture, engineering as well. And they're basically Croatian company as well. There's a lot of also Serbian companies as well. There is a lot of Greek telecom companies. There is mostly AI in the Europe, who is also doing like the unsupervised AI, like AI deployment of models. And they are competing with H2O AI, for example, mostly AI startup from Austria. There is a lot of excellent things coming from Europe, and they are not getting media attention because most of the attention is still on the politicians. And I think that is very bad. They are talking about what they are thinking about something that is totally unimportant. Like, who gives a damn about some politician if he did one or two things? It's better to present one startup by week, like in the mass media. But basically, media in Europe are heavily funded by the states and or helped by the state-owned companies, etc. La la la. So basically, they are free, but in the end, they are also much more like connected with person who are they cooperating, and then we have like let's say funding from these companies, like in the end, or that enough fundings. And I think that media will be much more attended, not to have like a reality shows, something like that, but to like maybe present startups. To be honest, I'm like 100% sure that the most of the common folks like you and me will like watch TV. If you could have like a television show like once a week, 1 hour, talking with startup owners, I would watch that. I'm not watching TV. I will watch that because people are saying like, okay, the media is not anymore cool feature for the youngsters. It's not true. The program is not fit for the youngsters. That's the problem. That's the issue. And people don't want to, because they said we cannot sell that, in terms of they cannot sell the minutes because they are not sure how they will. I don't know. I think that much more entrepreneurship in media should be done. Of course, it's not easy for them as well. We need to understand they are not tech guys. And basically what we can do as a tech guys, we need to invest our time in community building of media and to not forget about them as well, to take them with us in 21st century deployment of technology, because it can help them a lot. It can lower their cost. It can help them to do their job much faster. That's something that should be doing from the tech. And that's something that in Europe we are doing very bad. In US, it's a bit different because they are having different like mindset. The main thing about media in the US is to promote American culture. So basically, startup culture is a part of their culture as well. But you're also not hearing about Israel startup nation. You're hearing about Israel startup nation, but they're also not that heavily introduce it, they are also doing crazy, crazy good things. For example, in Israel, but you're not hearing also from their startup as well. So like I think that we need to be a bit more connected, like I said, in the first place, and we need to cooperate with the different stakeholders.
From your observation, what is unique about the data science industry in Europe?
That's a good question. I was thinking about that, like when you asked me before, but I think that, like I said, strong roots in the academia about data science. I think that the academia still has a lot of things to offer. In academia, there is a good mix between the academia researchers and the hackers, people who are doing like self-taught learn, but they are not connections, but they are doing the totally separate ways and the same thing, and they are not cooperating. I think that's unique, that you have the very similar kind of person, but with different backgrounds, different mindsets. They are doing the same thing and not communicating together. And that's maybe, like I said, unique in terms of negative thing. In terms of positive thing, I think that Europe is much more ready to do some things from the idea and not from the interest, to try to develop their idea, not only for the profit per se, but because they would like to see where that idea may go. So I think that that's something can be a good approach. Not all the time, but like I said, that's unique for the Europe. I think I'm not sure about Australia. Is that's also with Australia the case? But basically, in Europe, that is the case. That you can see a lot of people trying out their ideas without clear business model, just to see what will be happening if I do this. Like curiosity.
Absolutely. I think one thing that certainly is important for an idea to take off is the adoption by the mass, which also happens to be required when it comes to the population size. So I think that is probably something that I find maybe what we are missing in Europe or perhaps Australia.
Well, most probably, yes. I think that you're right, like regarding that. But yes, that will be like very, very easy.
Now, I have another question for you is then, can you foresee or what would you do to encourage collaboration in data science between Europe and other parts of the world?
Well, first of all, learn about time difference is not a bad thing. Sometimes you can organize flexible right time. So if you can stay a little bit later, like to work with US, you can also wake up a little bit earlier to work with Australia. It's not hard, folks. Come on. It's like 7:00 right now. So basically, don't stay up late in the pubs and just woke up a bit earlier and work together with Australian counterparts. That's the first thing. People do have like this kind of, I don't know, approach. They're like, Australia is very far away. And okay, US is not. Well, they are only 6 hours, but there is also 6 hours difference, like, or 7. Like, it's very similar. With San Francisco is 9. Come on. Some of the most common things that people don't tend to not think about, it's common things. Like, I think that it is very important for community leaders in the ecosystem event management. That's not our fault. We are not working hard enough. I think, and that's also I can think for myself, to try to find the speakers from different parts of the world. We need to work out that, okay, there is like much bigger costs of that, but you can find like some grants, some things to find people from the other part of the world to come there, because of course it's not the same to buy a plane ticket from the Austria or from the Australia. It's very similar pronouns, but it's totally different part, totally different costs, to be honest. Don't make that mistake. But like I said, joking, of course, but I think that we need to start from organizing possibilities to communicate between these different parts. If nothing else, let's use this COVID thing and communicate online. Let's organize, when we're organizing some panel about something, let's ask somebody, and it's sometimes hard to connect people from Australia, Europe, and US. Almost impossible because of that's impossible. But you
that's
have like
that's very difficult to get 3 different continents in the same.
That's somebody is going to be really like, and that's basically Australia or US person is going to have like 3:00 in the morning. Like, it's not possible to organize it. But everything else, like China and US, is not possible to organize. People tend to think about, but basically, like when you're organizing Europe, to organize US and China in one panel, impossible. for people very impossible. Even like for the, I don't know, from the East Coast and China, there is bigger difference between the East Coast in the US and China than is from Serbia and Australia, basically. People don't understand this like basic concept of the time and space. They just see the map and they see, okay, one part of the map, a second part of the map, that's the same. No, people, it's not the same. Like there is like 5,000 kilometers. But okay, in the end, I think that, like I said, we need to try harder to organize networking events and events again, generally, to connect these parts. First online, after that, of course, live. We need to use like a middle ground. I don't know, for example, middle ground between Europe and Australia can be as well. Like it can be Middle East. It can be also maybe India, like something that is closer to like, I don't know, when you're organizing that to the people organize. If you're organizing in Europe, we can bring together very easily people from, I don't know. And Russia is also very far away in terms of how much flight we need to come to Serbia, for example. And people think, okay, it's not all the time. But for example, you can bring people from Middle East and Asia and people from US because that's the middle ground. And we need to use these connections and to connect. And why I think that is very important, because like I said, I would like to say once again, I think that we can learn a lot from each other. So we are doing almost the same things, or the similar things, maybe even in different industries, but we can learn and speed up the process of learning. And if nothing else, everybody who is professional now knows how much of pain-killing jobs we are doing, like before we come to the point why we are working. And I think that shouldn't be it. And could be that it could be different. I think that it could be different because of this. And that's why it's important to have like connections. Like, I don't know. That's why I think that the data science conference, Australia will be very cool to be part of like the global movement and to be organized there. It's not only about one event, it's about connection with other events from our umbrella of networks.
Totally. Now, final question for you is, if the world wants to learn more about what Europe has got to offer with AI and data science, what is the best place for them to start exploring?
That's an excellent question, because sometimes even I don't know where to start. And I'm somebody who is researching like almost every week, few hours, I'm researching about it. And it's very, very hard to see that. I think that the conference should be, but how to find a conference? That's also like, because there is a different, just put like, if you'd like to learn about something, AI data science conference, and I think that there is a lot of good conference. And I do this all the time, not mention only my conference, but also the other open data science conference, machine learning in Prague. There is also a conference that's called Crunch conference in Hungary. There is a lot of big data London. There is a lot of good conference in Europe, and you can see who is exposing there and to find what is your niche. You would like to learn more about it. And there's a lot of free parts of the programs because of the COVID, and it's online. You have like cost as organizer of this online event. It's not for free as people think, because you need to pay all of this background things such as production and the application. But in the end, use this opportunity to see who is working where and connect with the people. Don't be afraid to start them up. But like I said, try with the conference. I think that because people who work in our industry, like who are event managers for the conference, we are in contact with what is happening the latest in the job. And my percent for the people who are watching the conference, do not go all the time. If you see, I don't know, CTO or CEO or director of something in big company, you will not hear that much from them. Look for the companies who are like, I don't know, Pi Data, for example, who is deeply rooted with professionals. Like, okay, you're having like all the conferences have some big names, something like that. But if you have that, they have like 5, 6, or 7 names from some big companies, that's most probably BS conference, because you'll just hear about how awesome they are, how they are doing digital transformation, and how their KPI has gone 5%, and they didn't tell what they are doing. They're for sure exposed there. Everybody knows what they are doing because they are the big company. The second thing, they don't understand. They didn't say a word about the process of digital transformation. They pain points. They didn't talk about data governance as well, because that's secret, of course. And the last but not the least is like, they didn't tell what is their real KPIs. They just tell about like SDG KPIs they would like to everybody see. And I tend to talk with the people not to have this kind of, sometimes you have like partners, but I tend to ask them nicely not to have this kind of talk, but to be more into depths. For example, we have like speakers, and that's possible. We have speakers who might be MSS, and they had excellent talks, not BS talks, excellent talks. Maya was talking about, and sorry if you're promoting somebody, but Maya was talking about responsible AI, how to deploy responsible AI and ethical AI. It's something that is not highly monetized, can be highly monetized after the conference. And for example, Olivier was talking about how to employ something similar, or ethical AI, like in the organizations. It's something not that can be like, let's say, monetized per se, because you need to talk with the companies. If you're an event organizer, that's my 2 cents for everybody. Guys, you need to talk with the companies. You need to tell them if something is not okay, if something is not doing right. Of course, you're going to have all the time some people who are going to break the rule or break what you have spent your time, but you need to talk with people and to explain to them. It's our responsibility to explain to them that they will not get a return of profit. We invested in conference by talking about their product with like 35 minutes, and 25 minutes they're talking about their company. Nobody gives them about how ABM started or SaaS started. And when you start talking with them, they are very rational and cool people. Believe me, they will listen to you, and you can influence them to change that. It's easier to change that with the multinational corporation. If you're having big state big country corporation, they're sometimes going to have a problem, but also that's possible. We managed to do that. It's not all the time. It's back and forth, but in the end, you will make a partner for life if you just not being like, okay, you're giving, I don't know, 10, 20, 50,000 bucks and you can do whatever you want. No, you cannot, because in the end, it's your name, it's your conference, it's your event. It's totally fine to say no sometimes, because because I don't know, we had some questions regarding the, I don't know, exclusivity. We said, okay, that's not possible. And believe me, if you put a price on exclusivity, you will not pay, because it cannot pay to you, because it's not only about what you're getting, but what we are losing. That's something that like a thing that's also, it's very, very, very people don't talk about that, but there is that's a hard part maybe about managing director, that you need to be very, very truthful what we are saying to your partners.
My final 2 questions for every single of my guests is, the first one is, what is your most important first principle?
Get rich or die trying. Go joking, of course. That's 50 cents. The first principle, okay, I have one principle, that is, it doesn't matter how many times you fall, it's about how many times you get up. And I really do stick to that principle. And I think that it's very important to understand that that life is math, basically. Life is math, not math, but mathematics. And the thing is that it's like sinus function. It has ups and downs. It's totally fine to be very happy, and don't make, that's like I said, don't be bragging about when you're on the good side, but also don't fall down. Don't put everything blame on yourself if you're down. Sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes it's like about a certain circumstance that maybe you can prevent, but maybe you cannot, because you can only benchmark with what is happening right now, but not what could happen. So basically, just try. That's life. Life can be tough. That's the hard truth. And you need to get up. And I think that everybody of us can get up. Even if you cannot get up, ask somebody to help you. That's also fine. And in the end, I think that's very important.
I want to echo on that, is that all of us are actually going through the experience. Sometimes perhaps we look at someone who has got a big title, or perhaps if we use Elon Musk as an example, who is one of the, obviously the richest guy in the world. Yes, he may have so much money, but equally there is a lot of challenges that he has to go through. In fact, he probably had to go through so many problems, and life was so hard before he claimed the richest person position in the world. So I think that is a message that everyone should really remember. Everyone go through the same journey.
And to be like completely honest, and maybe this is not a good thing to say because I would like to bring Elon Musk, but it helps you a bit a lot when when your family is having like emerald mine in South Africa when you want to start your career. It can help you a bit, it's much easier. But like I said, okay, that's the fact. Like, man, don't shoot the messenger. That's the fact. But like I said, it still that doesn't take anybody for anything from what he has created. I really admire him. On second place, I'm like, let's say 75% sure that he's one of the people behind Bitcoin. like blockchain technology and Bitcoin, like 75%. Like I can see that he is one of the person behind it. It's not only him. I think that is a broader scope of people. Like I think that most of them are not alive anymore because they're from Pirate Bay. And I all the time like to remind people that our brothers from Pirate Bay who are hackers, they were killed by the person in the jail because what they have been doing for the free world. But people do tend to forget about some of the things. This is like, and they are closely related. And for example, I don't know if you know the fun fact, and I learned that yesterday. I didn't fact check that, and I will do that. That basically Edward Snowden, his partnering company was also one of the founders in PayPal with Elon Musk.
Okay.
For example, like I said, but I think that there is behind the scene, there is a strong, like big fight happening right now regarding data privacy, data security, that like even us who are aware of what is happening are not aware of what is happening, if you understand what I'm saying.
My final question for you is, what is one book that you have read and thought it would have been better for your younger self to have?
Okay. I have the answer. The book is called Death in Venice. And why? Because I would help much easier to my girlfriend when she was working on her master's thesis, because it's her master's thesis is about Death in Venice, book by Thomas Mann. So it will be much easier for me to help her in this part if I read it when I was younger. But it's very cool. Actually, it's a very cool story. It's about our inner self. It's about Apollonian and Dionysian part of ourself. The one that is very need to have like rules and strict what information basically on one part, and the chaos on the second part, and how to make the perfect combination of these two is basically the way to achieve happiness. And basically, that's what I'm doing like all the time in my life. If I have read earlier, I would said, okay, that's the right path. I'm on the right path. I know that because I wrote it as well. Like, but joking, of course, it's very short book, but it can be very, very interesting things. In terms of philosophical view, the message can be a little bit, let's say, it's not the message from the book cannot be maybe in 21st century media like very cool, because it's about the guy who is a writer and who felt attracted to the young boy, 14 years old, but he's not attracted to the boy, he's attracted to his concept of beauty, basically. And he's in combat with himself because he was living like German, very strict life, and he wanted to experience something fun and something chaotic in his life, because he all the time said there's something that shouldn't be done. And it's very, very philosophical book. It's not like maybe when I was younger, I wouldn't understand that much. And right now, it's like, but maybe start reading book when you're younger enough, that when you're older, to see how you have perceived the world once and now. So basically, that's the answer.
Nice one. I will have to add that book into my list of reading. Probably a good one for 2022 reading list.
It's very short. 40 pages.
Thank you so much, Alex, for coming to this podcast and sharing your views about the data science and progresses from the European perspective and what's happening in Europe, and equally, how is that compared to the rest of the world, and what else can we learn from each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason, for having me as your speaker at your podcast. I would like to say thank you to all of your public, and to tell them that it will be very nice to stay connected in the future.
Absolutely.